Okay, The Lady Says No Part 2. Another thing about The Lady Says No is we don't really know what is in the book called The Lady Says No, which is her, we just know that it advocates basically that boys and girls should walk on opposite sides of the street, and that there should just be very little sex, or very little making out, and very little of that whole thing. Um, Another thing about it, though, is that it never mentions the reasons why women, particularly as a sex, would want to just say no. There's no mention in there of pregnancy. There's, for example, when he starts to, when William Shelby starts to get Dorinda Hatch out of her quasi-feminist abstinence ways, she talks about the moon and the honeysuckle. Nobody mentions what's on the other side of that romantic scene with the moon and the honeysuckle. Nobody mentions the stink of a full poopy diaper. Nobody mentions the abortionist, having having a big needle go into your belly and make you sick for several days. Nobody mentions placing a baby for adoption and wondering what became of it, of him or her. Nobody mentions the extraordinary pain that is caused by unwanted or unplanned pregnancies. And then, another thing that I didn't mention in the first video on Lady Says No is that William Shelby, when he comes over to meet the abstinence promoting feminist, assumes that it's the aunt, the stout middle-aged woman, who would write the book The Lady Says No. And he says he wants pictures of her knitting and with the cat. Again, when we think of feminists in 2022, or even feminists in the 1970s, we don't think of them knitting. They don't stay home. We don't think of them staying home and knitting, and we also don't necessarily think of them as crazy cat lady. I mean, there is the stereotype of the crazy cat lady, but it's not really the same thing as the stereotype of the quote-unquote women's liber. Okay, and anyway, that's second part on a lousy but important movie. The Lady Says No, 1951, starring Joan Caulfield, David Niven, and Frances Bouvier.